Durant said after the game that the loss was a slap in the face. You know what, Stephen A.? Let's go there. Has Durant made the Warriors worse?
First of all, I think the question itself is idiotic, and anybody who thinks that it makes the Warriors worse after one game is idiotic. It makes no sense whatsoever. It's an 82-game schedule. It's one bad night. They didn't show up to play, which is something we have to ask Steve Kerr about, who is a great coach but has struggled in Game 7 of last year's NBA Finals and struggled the very next game, which was Game 1 of this season. They seemed ill-prepared. Let me just put it out there. They were missing threes. Steph Curry shot 3 of 10 from three-point range. Klay Thompson shot 1 of 6. That's 4 of 16 from the best shooting backcourt we've ever seen, okay? They did not have a good night. They were missing layups. They were sloppy with the basketball. They were turning it over. Meanwhile, the San Antonio Spurs had aberrations all over the place. Jonathan Simmons, 20 points on 8 of 14 shooting. Kawhi Leonard, we know he can play. We know he's a stud. But 35 points, come on now. That's not what you expect from Kawhi Leonard. Well, what does that have to do with the price of tea in China? We're talking about the Spurs and Warriors.
I'm sorry, I didn't know. Carmelo or Kawhi.
But I didn't know that that's what we were talking about. I thought we were talking about the Spurs and Warriors last night.
I didn't even know I said it out loud.
You're already annoying him.
Yeah, you did. Okay. The point is that, and I'm a little sick by the way, but I'm all right. The point is that Kawhi Leonard is not going to drop 35 on most nights. Kawhi Leonard is a stud. We know he could play. But the kind of night that he had last night was by and large due to the sloppiness of the Golden State Warriors that gave the San Antonio Spurs an abundance of opportunities. San Antonio, obviously exceptionally well coached, came ready to play. They were ready for the season opener, and they performed like it. But the Golden State Warriors were incredibly sloppy. That is an aberration. That is not something that's going to happen on most nights against this team. It was a bad night. That's all it was.
Of course, Kevin Durant has made them worse. We're talking about right now, are they better or worse than they were last year when they were a 73-win team that came within a couple minutes, really a couple possessions, of winning the finals again? Yes, they are worse for now. Just like when LeBron and Bosh got to the Heat with Wade, they didn't get worse because of where the Heat were coming from, but it took them a while to get going. Through their first 17 games, they were 9-8, and then they went 22-1. So, and made it to the finals where LeBron choked it away, but still they were favored and they probably should have won had LeBron not choked it away. So does Kevin Durant in the long run make the Warriors the favorites still? Yes, I believe he does. Do I think they're going to win the chip this year? Yes, I think they will. You take out Harrison Barnes in a death lineup and insert Kevin Durant. Boy, that's worse than a death lineup. That's a lineup will kill you and then kill you again in the afterlife. So I think he makes them better in the long run. But for now, and maybe for the foreseeable future, for the first 10, 15, maybe 20 games, they're not going to be as good as they were. That is a major piece to integrate into the chemistry of the team. And I don't just mean the way the death lineup maybe works. It's the way Steve Kerr has to juggle the pieces. When do we play Steph with Durant? Because when they played together, actually, they were a +1 on the Spurs. But he tried to play them separately. It didn't work. Big negative plus-minus numbers when he did that. How do we fit Iguodala into this? What's his role in the second unit? All those things have to be figured out now against real NBA competition with the money on the line now over the first several weeks of the season. And over that time, this Warriors team will be worse than they were. Of course they will be.
Well, listen, the point that I'm trying to make to you is this. Even last night was no indication because of the missed shots. If Steph Curry and Klay Thompson don't shoot 4 of 16 from three-point range, what are we talking about here?
8 of 16, 12 points. They lost by 29, Stephen A., so they still lose by 17.
Well, excuse me, this is basketball, so what happens is allow me to teach you something for a particular second here. With basketball, there's such a thing as tempo and momentum. So you might hit those few shots. By hitting those few shots, everything else tends to flow because you're cutting down on those turnovers. You're playing with more confidence.
Sure.
You're not frustrated and you're overcompensating, and as a result, you do things that lend itself towards you making even more mistakes, which leads to an horrific night like last night was. Just those shots alone, it's not a matter of points.
Yeah, but
it's a matter of the other increments that come with it. Hold on.
29 points.
I'm sorry, I just explained it.
They don't
Do I
explain
need to repeat
29,
myself?
but go ahead.
You understand? It does explain 29. If you know basketball, it explains 29.
Well, what explains
it's not
29
just about
is
the
they
numbers.
don't have a last line of defense because in order to make room for Kevin Durant, actually a point that you brought up yesterday, no Bogut. Also, no Ezeli, no Spates, who was really only nominally a big man for them in terms of the function he served. But they were able last year to be reckless, swarming, ball defenders where they can't gamble the same way because they don't have that last line of defense. All those things take getting used to for them and take adjustments.
Well, I noticed that your strategy is not listening to me and then making a point to buffer your own point, even though it wasn't really a point because you didn't hear what I was trying to say. What I said was, in the interest of full disclosure for the audience out there, is this. When you're playing the game of basketball, if you're making shots and it emboldens you, all of a sudden you cut down on the turnovers, your confidence is elevated, and the mistakes that you normally make that ultimately tend to snowball on you don't exactly occur. So it's not just about missing 12 of the 16 three-pointers that they made and how that would make up for it. It's not just about that. It's about alleviating the other mistakes that you would have predictably made if you didn't miss those shots. You also take into consideration Kawhi Leonard. Not only did he have 35 points, he went to the free throw line 15 times and made all 15 of his free throws. That's just 3 less than the entire Golden State Warriors team. And what happens when you're not making shots? What happens when you're getting frustrated? You turn the ball over and you tend to foul more because out of frustration, you do things like that, which is why he went to the line so much. So all of those things contributed to it. In the end, all I'm trying to say is that one game like this doesn't mean that the Golden State Warriors are worse. They had a bad night. That is what happened. There's nothing else to this.
They will be better in the long run in the sense that they're probably going to win the championship this year, or at least they've given themselves an even better chance likely to win it this year than they had last year. But you can't just say, well, he didn't make them worse right now. First of all, they ain't going to win 73 games again. I mean, in the long run, that's not going to happen. You had to get a little lucky to do that anyway. Secondly, there will be an adjustment period, and here we're seeing it. And thirdly, to credit Popovich, even though he's also had to integrate new pieces, he loses Tim Duncan, who's the backbone of that franchise for so long, brings in Gasol. There are changes on the Spurs too, but none as big as bringing in a Kevin Durant and how that changes things. And so Popovich's unit performs like a team that's been playing together a long time, like a team. And Golden State is still trying to figure out what team they're going to be.
So let me ask you a question here, Max Kellerman. If the Golden State Warriors go on a roll, for example, right? And let's just say they win 20 straight.
Sure, possibility.
But then they show up one night and they lose by 30. What you gonna say then?
They got blown out after a great winning streak. This is not that. This is very similar to what we saw in Miami when the Big Three got together. How do you know what it is?
Hold on, that's my point. How do you know what it is? Because it's game one.
Right.
Because I know it's game one of the regular season.
And have you seen
one night in, and you're ready to say they're worse? One night?
Yes. Well, for right now, yes. That's frequently what happens when you bring in a brand new piece that is going to be so important to the team. Frequently, there's an adjustment period. In the long run, I expect them to be better. In the short run, I expect them to be worse while they figure this out. Absolutely.
Okay. All right. By the way, 73-9. The likelihood is they may not do that again, but that wouldn't mean it's because they're worse. It would mean because, as Max Kellerman adroitly pointed out in weeks past and days past, they were foolish to expend so much energy trying to capture that streak, playing guys extra games and extra minutes and all of that other stuff. So they damaged themselves for the finals by expending so much energy and beyond in pursuit of the all-time record and the all-time season. So it's entirely plausible that the Golden State Warriors may indeed reach a point where they're willing to say, that record is not important to us because the regular season is not that important to us. What we need to do is think like the Spurs and do everything that we can to be at elite peak physical condition for the postseason, which might not lend itself towards 73-9. That does not make them worse, according to Max. Not even me.
Well,
according to Max, it didn't make them worse. It made them wise. It made them wise.
Let me return the compliment in that case, Stephen A. It is true, had the Warriors gone 16 for 16 from 3, they would have won by a little bit. That's true.
All right. Are we done here, gentlemen? Are we good? Can we
Who
move
knows
on?
what Max? Who knows what he's going to say next? I don't know when he's done, but go ahead.
Oh, testy. I like it. All right, enough of these two. We want to hear from you guys, our First Take fam. Go on Twitter, vote in our poll. Has Durant made the Warriors worse? Sorry, Stephen, I asked the question again. We'll share those results a little later